morning. What matters to me is that I'm working for a company that can change the world. Sounds like everybody's dream job, huh? For me, it certainly is. What may matter to other people is that I'm actually working for the largest biotechnology company in the world. I am working for Roche Diagnostics, which is a division of the Roche Group, and we manufacture diagnostic equipment for medical research and for diagnostics applications. And you might need to know that about 70% of all medical decisions are based on diagnostic results. So if we fail, or if our instruments fail, or if we are doing something wrong, in the end, there are lives on the line. And so we have affiliates as a Roche Group in many countries, and I'm heading the affiliate here in Austria. We are about 180 people. 180 people which are serving the Austrian hospitals, the Austrian laboratories, and also the Austrian primary care physicians. In Austria, we are priding ourselves of our track record. We haven't missed our targets in the last decades. We haven't had layoffs in the last decades. We are by far the market leader. And we have a team here in Austria which actually serves as the talent pool for our headquarters in Switzerland. It's a team that is proud, but it's also a team with a mindset of if it ain't broken, don't fix it. And just if you wanted to understand a little bit more what it is, what is it that this diagnostics things are doing? It's actually huge equipment. It's these large, almost robots that you can find at the back offices or most of the time underground in hospitals or in separate laboratories, just like these ones here. And they have to be able to process about many thousand blood samples per day, and out of these blood samples you can get some certain information that is important for your health status. And they don't have to be as big as these robots there. I actually brought you an instrument here, which is a handheld device. It's much smaller, and this instrument is actually quite fascinating because it can do one thing. It can measure one parameter, which is called NT-proBNP. NT-proBNP is a parameter that tells you if you are about to have a heart failure. Heart failure is one of the most malignant diseases that you can imagine. It's only surpassed by lung cancer. About 10 million people in Europe are affected by heart failure. It is unfortunate that almost 50% of the patients die within 5 years after having a heart failure event. And if you look at it from a cost perspective, from a healthcare systems perspective, it is one of the costliest diseases because you need a lot of very high quality and technical hospital care and emergency room care. So in Austria alone, it costs 340 million per year in the system to support heart failure patients. And so, of course, it was a major breakthrough that you could actually, with this instrument, diagnose early. So there's no doubts that you have a heart failure, and you could really proceed very fast into treatment options for these people so that the survival rate is getting better. But on the other hand, think about it. This is a hospital instrument or a doctor's instrument. What would the possibilities be if you could make this one even smaller? If you could actually make it so easy to handle that you could self-test at home, especially if you're an at-risk group. If you could connect it so that your doctor or the hospital could also review the parameters. If it could actually match it with a database which is worldwide, and you could in fact predict if you are at the verge of a heart failure, and you could actually start treatment or preventative options much earlier. So this would be one dream, because if you look at it from the new wave of digitalization, if you look at it from the possibilities of big data, if you look at the scientific progress, if you look at the engineering progress, it could be possible. But it would also mean that our healthcare systems, which are based on assumptions from the last century, would need to change. And so what would it need to create such an instrument and bring it to the market? It would definitely need a different approach. It would need for us a different business model. It would need different skills, a different mindset. In one word, it would need an agile organization to be able to bring this forward for the benefit of the patient. And so, despite all the great achievements that we had here in Austria, we decided to move. We wanted to become agile. And we start in Roche with one important thing, and that is called mindset. Every executive has to go through a 4 days training, which is facilitated by the Full Circle group. And in this training, you are learning about the 2 levels of mindset. You have a creative mindset. That's the mindset where you're trying to shape. It's a mindset out of which you are showing courageous authenticity, where you are able to be authentic, where you are able to also work in a system. But most people and also most executives operate from what is called a reactive mindset. That's the command and control mindset. That's the mindset of a hierarchical organization. And so what we did in this 4 days training is we really looked at this, and we looked at ourselves as executives on how we are feeling and where we are operating from. Think about us as a healthcare company. Because there are lives on the line, we almost always try to be perfect. We cannot allow us a mistake. And this mindset has actually permeated in pretty much everything we are doing. And just think about it, what it does to your team if your leader always tries to be perfect. What kind of decisions are you triggering with that? What kind of actions are you triggering with that? And so during this training, I had this Eureka moment, this epiphany, that first of all, I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about how I want to change my own mindset, how I want to shift it. But I also thought, you know, this is something I want to bring back to my team. This is something, it doesn't make sense if I just teach them, if I tell them what I have experienced. They have to go through it themselves. And so I hired the company or the companies that did this for our executives, which is the Full Circle Group and also McKinsey, who provided an agile coach. And we decided to try this out in Austria. And so what I'm going to tell you now is a little bit of what we did, how we did it, and also what we could have done better. First of all, we restaged the workshop that we had with executives. But this time, we did it with everybody in the company. So from our leadership team down to the salespeople on the floor, down to the technical people who are serving the instrumentation. And everybody had to walk on this mat, which is on the floor, which is this leadership circle, and you come from your most reactive part, and you are actually walking and trying and seeing how it feels if you shift your mindset, if you're coming into a more creative side. So that sounds quite easy, but I have to say the obstacles were a little bit before, because when I invited people to this workshop, and I was quite proud to invite people, it said leadership workshop. And people declined the invite. And I couldn't believe it, because it was something new that we wanted to try out. And when I asked the people, so why did you decline? And they said, you know, it said leadership in the title of the invite. And you know, I'm not a leader, I'm just a salesperson. So I thought I got the invite by accident. And so this was already a very first indication that, you know, you have to really think a little bit earlier. You also have to be aware that as an executive, you're using a certain language that is not used by everybody. But it also showed that, of course, you have to work on the mindset of the people first, meaning even if you're not per se leading in a line management, you're still role modeling, you're still leading yourself, and with that, you can certainly have an impact on your surrounding. So that was the beginning, the uncomfortableness from the employees, but there of course was also uncomfortableness from the leadership teams, because they felt they are giving away now some of their control. They didn't feel quite comfortable yet with the coaching approach, and so also they had to shift their mindset there and learn that it's not a command and control system, that you actually can coach, and with that create in an agile organization much more and much better. Apart from the mindset, there is another piece that is very, very important, and that's honestly a little bit easier. and that's methodology. If you want to turn agile, there's a certain methodology behind it. And we did it in a stepwise process. We first learned the Scrum methodology, then we made our processes agile. We learned about agile leadership teams and how they can interact. And in the end, we created agile departments. And it was the absolute right thing, I think, to start with Scrum, because it already embodies the new spirit. But on the other hand, it's a very, very rigid, very planned process, and that felt comfortable to the people. You have a Scrum Master who is guiding you through every single step. What I didn't expect is really the amazing enthusiasm and the amazing energy that even the Scrum projects in the beginning inflamed in our organization. And what it meant is we gave people 50% of their time to work on Scrum. They worked on it much, much more. And that was very hard to control because honestly, we still have a business to run. So if people are working more than their allotted 50%, it means they actually have to work more than 100% to be able to keep the business running. And if you then think, of course, that even your normal business can face some challenges, it becomes quite cumbersome. So if we had to do it again, I think I would think a little bit more on limiting this amount of time you give a two-speed organization, an organization which is half agile and an organization that is still running according to the old model. And it became better and better. By the end, we now have agile departments. One of our first departments to go agile was actually the quality and regulatory department, the one I would have least expected to do this because they really are very rigid. But they saw the value, and they also saw the value of co-creation with stakeholders, of co-creation with authorities, to make the system better and more adapted to the current state. So we have mindset, we have methodology. The last piece we needed to look at was architecture. Architecture is often described for agile as a flock of birds, so it's something moving. Every bird is moving at the same speed. Every bird is constantly in contact with the other birds around him, so they know what to do. And they can adapt really, really fast to obstacles that they might encounter. If there's a windmill, they can fly around, and so on. And if you transfer that to an organization, I personally found this the hardest part, because you really need to figure this out for your own organization, for your own setup, and for your own requirements. There are the agile principles, co-creation, transparency, fast trial and errors, cycles, all of that, but you still need to make it work for your organization. And quite honestly, in the beginning, I had the feeling that more often we are trying to be a pack of wolves pretending to be a flock of birds than really a flock of birds. This is also the piece where we are still working on. The birds have this common vision of going south, so it's also a way on how you want to lead the companies. With the company, we are trying to introduce OKRs, objectives, key results, as a model right now, which is also used by other companies such as Google, I think. And I think that will even help more, that you don't need this top-down approach anymore. It's work ongoing. We are still only 1.5 years in. But I feel we made quite some progress on the 3 important agile moves. The first one being going from a command structure to a collaborative structure, to go from a control to an innovation piece, and to go from value capture to value creation. Think about the value capture. Before, we were all about grabbing market share. We wanted to remain the market leader. In the value creation mindset, we are really thinking about what can we do to change the market? What can we do to make it more beneficial for the health of the patients? I have to say in the beginning, it didn't go all that smoothly. I think we had quite some setbacks that I also would like to share with you. First of all, the revelation that agility is definitely not a cost-cutting exercise. You need to invest. You certainly need to invest because it's inherent in the system that in a waterfall planning, you plan once and you execute, whereas in agility, you make rapid trial and error and improvement cycles. So of course, per definition, you need more resources to fulfill many of these cycles. In the end, you have the much better product, the much better outcome, but you also have to invest into the energy into making that possible. The second part I would ask you to consider is look on how you can limit a two-speed organization, on where you can go agile without hurting the rest of the organization, or at least limit the time that you need to transition, because fulfilling both organizational philosophies, the traditional one and the agile one, that's very hard for one company. And I'm quite grateful we did have at least the summer off from agility, and I think that was quite needed for people also to reboot and to restart. The last thing we did right, but I think I urge you to really look into this, is you have to also work very hard on changing the mindset of the people. And for me, I think the key piece is actually not the mindset of the employees, because they get it very fast. They feel it liberating, but the mindset of your leadership teams and of your line managers. Because it is there that is probably the hardest shift, the shift from how they have learned to lead to how to lead in an agile organization, and how to coach there rather than to give out orders and how to do things. So for us, it has been a hell of a ride, I have to say. It's been absolutely fantastic. We have, after only 2 years or 1.5 years, we have actually overreached our targets. We have increased our market share even more. But what has been even more important is the spirit in the organization that I'm feeling right now. It's more energy, it's more courage, it's people not trying to be so perfect anymore, but they are going out with things and ideas that they are then co-creating with our customers. More than one meeting with a customer, which was supposed to be just a chat about a vision, ended up in a small Scrum project and the development of a minimum viable product. So we got much further. We are reaching out now to different stakeholders. And remember, that's important for us if we ever wanted to get this into the homes of the people. And we are also looking a little bit more into the system around us. We are not only looking at ourselves, at mindset shift, or at the organization, but we are really trying to shape and to create the healthcare system outside. And really impacting the system is, I believe, the thing that agility is best set up for. Once you really get it in your own organization, once in your own mindset done in the organization, I think the absolutely consequential next step has to be to go outside and see what you can do for the system. Our purpose is doing the best for the patients, to really help them to have a longer, happier and healthier lives. And if I look at what is out there with the digitalization, big data coming, the scientific knowledge, if you wanted to learn it, what happens every day, you would need 29 hours to just read and update yourself on the progress. If you looked at what is also possible technically, all of that is fantastic, and it could have major, major impact on the healthcare systems, also in helping to save costs. You don't need to be hospitalized anymore if you have patients empowered and willing to check on their health status themselves and manage themselves. And you see that. People are more and more willing to do that. And yet, we are working in a system that is actually not set up for this yet. And so the next step for us, in order to be able to deliver this healthier lives to the patients, in order to do so, we need to really go out. We need to work with the stakeholders. We need to work with the healthcare systems, not only in Austria, but wherever we are active. And we need to work also with other startups and other stakeholders in the space to be able to fulfill what really is possible and to be able to fulfill what could make a huge difference in patients' lives. And that's what we set out to do. And so if you are still wondering if you want to go agile, maybe there are not lives at the line for you. But what is certainly at the line is the lives of your employees. And also you will have a product delivery and a product quality that's most likely much increased. So what I can tell you is, go agile, it's worth it, take the courage. Thank you.